Hallo und herzlich willkommen. Ich begrüße Sie in der
Hello, a warm welcome. I am at the permanent representation of the state of Hesse to the European Union, and I would like to welcome you. We are today having an event in our series Debating Europe, and we will be talking about the future common agricultural policy.
this channel. Please use the other link you have presented in your invitation. Wir sprechen heute mit
Today, we will be talking with the Director-General of the Directorate-General Agriculture and Rural Development, Dr. Wolfgang Burtscher. But first of all, I would like to listen to the welcoming of Secretary of State for European Affairs of the State of Hessen, Mark Weinmeister.
Sehr geehrte Damen und Herren, ich heiße Sie alle herzlich willkommen zu dieser virtuellen Diskussion über die zukünftige europäische Agrarpolitik. Leider sind wir aufgrund der Infektionslage nach wie vor gezwungen, Veranstaltungen in diesem Format abzuhalten. Ich freue mich deshalb umso mehr, dass Sie sich zu Hause entschieden haben, dieser Debatte zu folgen. Und ich danke besonders Herrn Dr. Wolfgang Burtscher, dem Generaldirektor der
Director-General of the Directorate-General for Agriculture and Rural Development. He took the time today to come to our event here at the representation in Brussels. I would also like to thank Gudrun Engel, WDR correspondent in Brussels, that she accepted to be the moderator of our event today. This event is taking place at a very crucial moment, since Council and European Parliament are currently negotiating the future design of the common agricultural policy. An agreement should be reached by next spring. The common agricultural policy is one of the most important policy domains where the EU has exclusive responsibility. This policy has a long tradition and thus naturally also plays a central role in the EU budget. The objectives of the CAP have evolved over the past decades. Environment and climate aspects are becoming more and more important. And in addition to securing the food supply, the fair remuneration of farmers, and ensuring affordable food prices, the common agricultural policy is also supposed to ensure the development of rural areas, to protect soil and water, to contribute to the EU climate objectives, and to ensure sustainable management of natural resources. It is a very difficult task for the European decision-makers to find an adequate balance between all these challenges. But it is also a great challenge for farmers to meet all the tasks they face. This shift in emphasis is also reflected in the strategy From Farm to Fork and the biodiversity strategy, which the Commission has presented this year within the framework of the Green Deal. These strategies set ambitious targets for agriculture in 2030, which now have to be taken into consideration during the negotiations for the next CAP as from 2020, or taking into account the transition period as from 2022. In particular, the part of the CAP that is relevant for achieving the sustainability objectives of future agricultural policy focus of negotiations between the EU institutions. The question regarding the conditions attached to agriculture payments, the share of funds to be allocated to the implementation of ecological objectives, and which measures can be considered as ecological, will be discussed extensively during the weeks and months to come. These decisions will also have a huge impact on the rural areas in Hessen. There are more than 16,000 farms in Hessen. For only a little over a third of them, agriculture is their main occupation. Overall, therefore, there's a large number of smaller farms which characterize rural areas in Hessen. The share of ecological farming in Hessen is steadily increasing. In 2018, it was at 40.5% of the agricultural surface, which is clearly beyond the average in Germany and in the EU. It is our aim to increase this part up to 25% by 2025. In this respect, Hessen is already on a very good way and even a little bit more ambitious than the target of 25% by 2030 proposed by the Green Deal. The course that will be set at European level is therefore also of great importance for Hessian farmers who need the EU funds. The Hessian state government too needs appropriate framework conditions if it is to achieve its goals for Hessian agriculture and rural development. I'm therefore looking forward to today's debate, and I wish all of us a very exciting exchange on these interesting topics. Stay safe. This common agricultural policy is a huge challenge, and it's the oldest policy domain of the European community. In 1962, the predecessors have started with this policy. 450 million of Europeans have to be nourished. And so this topic is a very emotional topic. And as we see during the Brexit negotiations, we see that the fisheries policy is a very complicated topic. Now, expectations and challenges regarding farming and CAP have been changing, as Mr. Weinmeister said, and now it's necessary to find a balance. And who would be better person than our today's guest, Director-General of the Directorate-General Agriculture and Rural Development, Dr. Wolfgang Burtscher. Of course, you are invited to participate in this debate. You can send your questions, you can call us in order to ask us the questions. So you can call us under +32 472 030181, or you send an email to streamline@lv-brussels.hessen.de, as you can see on the screen. And now I am very glad to wish a warm welcome to our guest, Dr. Wolfgang Burtscher, who is also sitting behind his computer here in Brussels. And due to Corona, he cannot come to our stage representation. Nice to see you. May I ask you to give your keynote? Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Engel, and I wish you a nice afternoon to all the audience, and I would like to thank the representation of the state of Hessen to make this event possible. These days, we hear a lot about an open strategy for Europe in order to make Europe independent in key areas. We are thinking about defense, we are thinking about technology, and we're thinking about farmer. Regarding agriculture, it is not being mentioned. And this has a reason. In Europe, we are almost 100% autonomous regarding our food. Regarding cereals, regarding dairy products, we are almost autonomous, which means that during our COVID-19 crisis, we have not been confronted with a food crisis, which is not an evidence. And I think we can suppose that the common agricultural policy and the internal market have played an important role here. The debate of today, as Secretary of State Weinmeister mentioned, regards the fact that the CAP has been more targeted. The former objective of providing sufficient food at affordable prices was achieved. Now, regarding the fair distribution among farmers, the debate continues. But the focus of today's debate is the following. Does this have a negative impact on soil, on water, on climate, and on biodiversity? Indeed, during the last years, there have been efforts in order to improve the ecological balance. The part of ecological farmers has been increased. We have enlarged ecological measures, so it's really a success story. But we must not forget that we are frequently reading that the agriculture is also responsible for the loss of biodiversity and has a negative impact on the climate. And therefore, we have to continue our efforts in order to improve the balance. This brings me to the question which has already been mentioned by the Secretary of State, whether the agriculture has to meet the goals of the Green Deal. And I can state very clearly, yes, this strategy from farm to fork concerns not exclusively, but also concerns the agriculture. And it contains also very important objectives that are not easy to achieve. Reduction by 25% of the fertilizers, less use of antibiotics in farming, reconversion of agricultural surfaces into nature. So all these are specific challenges for the agricultural policy and for agriculture or for farmers. Now the question is, these proposals that are on the table, to what extent they can fulfill the expectations. Let us think about the initial proposal of the European Commission from 2018. It showed that within the CAP, we have to achieve sustainability in a broader sense, economic sustainability, but also ecological and social sustainability. And the Secretary of State has perfectly underlined the importance of agriculture also for rural areas. And this proposal from 2018 shows how important it was to, or still is, to try to achieve the objectives regarding biodiversity, ecology. And now with this strategy from farm to fork, we see that the Commission thinks that the initial proposal makes it possible to achieve the objectives of the new Green Deal if the proposals of the Commission will not be watered down. Let us think about the key proposals. 40% of the spending should have an impact on the climate, so 40% would be of relevance for the climate. We are also talking about an increased conditionality regarding the direct payments. Regarding the second pillar, at least 30% of the spending should go to environment, climate, and biodiversity. And last but not least, we want to spend one part of the payments under Pillar 1 for ecological rules. This is the aim of the Commission's proposal. Now we see the proposal of the Council and of the European Parliament. And as very often in life, these proposals contain positive elements supporting the Commission's proposal in a very broad way, but there are also some proposals remaining behind our ambitions, but the Commission is generally optimistic. If the co-legislators make common efforts, it should be possible to reach these goals. These are the main elements, the key elements of this future CAP. 40% of the funds should be spent for biodiversity, climate and ecology. There we do agree. Now, regarding the conditionality, there are some difference between Parliament and Council on the one hand and the Commission on the other hand. We believe that the Commission is more ambitious than Council and Parliament, especially regarding measures for the protection of biodiversity and fighting the climate change. Second important point, where we believe that the proposals of Council and Parliament are behind our expectations, regard the funds of the second pillar regarding climate, ecology and biodiversity. The Commission proposes 30% of the second pillar. Council and Parliament would like to include the payments for the disadvantaged areas under this point. And last point, where we welcome the progress made by Council and Parliament, are the ecological rules. The Council proposed 20% of the first pillar for that kind of rule. The Parliament has proposed 30%. This might sound impressive, but if we take into account the numbers, this would mean that almost 60 billion would be available for ecological rules based on the Parliament proposal, and it would be almost 40 billion if we take into account the Council's proposal. So it's a really important numbers, and it's very positive evolution. But now we have to make sure that these measures within this framework will be ambitious. This is one thing, and the flexibility must not lead to a watering down of the ecological objectives. This will be important during the remaining negotiations. And then one last point that is very important is regarding how do we evaluate, how do we assess the progress we make regarding ecology and biodiversity and climate. Here, the Commission's proposal is that in the future, we will pay much more attention to the results and less importance regarding whether the spendings have made in a correct way. In the future, we have to prove that the objectives regarding fertilizers, ecological farming, we have have to show that we have reached these goals. Currently, we are discussing a lot regarding pollinators, regarding butterflies, and this is very important for how agriculture is perceived, and we must be able to show that we improve the situation. Therefore, reports, evaluations are very important, even if it is perceived as a red tape obstacle. And to finish, I would like to say, we are optimistic for the trilogue. Conditions are good, and we will be able to decide if the co-legislators have enough ambition and want to find an ambitious decision. And we want these topics we mentioned to be addressed. Thank you very much.
Einblick. Wir wollen das jetzt etwas vertiefen im Gespräch. Wir sprechen also über diesen möglichen Systemwechsel im Stall und auf dem Acker. Und Sie haben es angesprochen, der Trilog. Dafür hat ja am vergangenen Donnerstag, also vor genau einer Woche, begonnen. Wir sind also ganz aktuell mit diesem Thema. Wir sind noch ganz am Anfang und deswegen wollen wir jetzt ein bisschen vertiefen und herausarbeiten, wo da die eigentlichen Herausforderungen sind. Ich würde das gerne in zwei Teile teilen, wenn Sie da mitgehen. Und zwar, dass wir erstmal inhaltlich über den Bereich reden. Wo sind jetzt die größten Hürden bei der Umsetzung? Sie haben gerade angesprochen, wo die Unterschiede liegen der Beteiligten und auch das Problem der Messbarkeit. Und was wäre jetzt Ihrer Ansicht nach besonders relevant, um das Baby quasi zum Ende zu bringen? Und daran anschließend, ganz wichtig, die Frage über diesen Policy-Bereich. Also wo stehen wir da? Wir haben jetzt mit dem Trilog begonnen. Wie geht es da weiter und wann können wir mit einer Entscheidung rechnen? Wenn Sie auch mitsprechen möchten oder Fragen haben, dann lassen Sie uns die bitte zukommen. Wir blenden das gerne nochmal ein. Sie können uns entweder telefonisch erreichen unter 0032 472 03 0181 oder Sie können uns eine E-Mail schreiben an streamline@lv-brüssel.hessen.de. Da sehen Sie es nochmal eingeblendet. Also diskutieren Sie gerne mit. Herr Dr. Burtscher, ich möchte gerne mit einer persönlichen Frage an Sie beginnen. Und zwar sind Sie jetzt ja seit April der Generaldirektor dieser Generaldirektion Landwirtschaft und ländlicher Raum. Ein riesen Arbeitsbereich, auch der Bereich, der ja im EU-Haushalt den größten Batzen der Mittel einbringt. Und alles, worüber wir jetzt reden, basiert aber ja quasi auf einer Vorlage, Sie haben das selbst angesprochen, noch aus der Juncker-Kommission vom damaligen Kommissar Hogan aus 2018. Und jetzt haben Sie quasi diese Basis und müssen darauf aufbauen. Haben Sie manchmal das Gefühl, dass Sie da eventuell auch ein schweres Erbe angetreten haben?
Nein, diesen Eindruck habe ich nicht, Frau Engel. Ich glaube, dass die Elemente, wie sie jetzt im ursprünglichen Kommissionsvorschlag dargelegt sind, wirklich uns ermöglichen, auch die Ziele, wie sie in den Green Deal-Strategien dargelegt sind, anzusprechen. Ich glaube noch einmal, dass erstens diese Frage der Multifunktionalität der Landwirtschaft eine ganz wichtige ist. Ich gebe zu, dass in der öffentlichen Debatte zu Recht im Moment die ökologische Dimension der Landwirtschaft im Vordergrund steht. Aber ich glaube, es ist wichtig, aus den Gründen, die ich eingangs erwähnt habe, nämlich Nahrungsmittelsicherheit, Rolle für den ländlichen Raum, dass wir die Landwirtschaft gesamtheitlich und ganzheitlich sehen. Das ist ganz wichtig und das ist in diesem Vorschlag angelegt. Dieser Vorschlag aus 2018 hat aber auch ganz klar gemacht, dass in besonderem Maße die ökologische Nachhaltigkeit forciert werden muss. Und es gibt Elemente in diesem Vorschlag, die vor allem sind, dass die Ausgaben, und das ist ausdrücklich, oder die Instrumente für die ökologische Nachhaltigkeit gestärkt werden müssen. No backsliding, höhere Ziele müssen erreicht werden. Und in diesem Vorschlag ist auch ganz klar definiert, dass wenn wir die nationalen Strategiepläne erhalten von den Mitgliedstaaten, die die Europäische Kommission genehmigen muss, dass dort ganz klar nachgewiesen wird, wie die Interventionen, die Instrumente, die die Mitgliedstaaten planen und die Mittel, die sie dazu zur Verfügung stellen, wie diese Instrumente und Mittel geeignet sind, die Vorgaben, wie sie sich aus politischen und rechtlichen Regeln ergeben, erfüllen müssen im Bereich Umwelt, im Bereich Biodiversität, im Bereich Nachhaltigkeit. Es ist also in diesem Vorschlag steht drinnen, dass wir die Biodiversität steigern müssen, denn die Frage der Pestizide, die Frage des Klimawandels. Und ich glaube, die Europäische Kommission ist im Moment gerade dabei, Empfehlungen an die Mitgliedstaaten auszuarbeiten, die noch vor Weihnachten beschlossen werden sollen, wo genau diese Punkte angesprochen werden, wo wir glauben, dass die Mitgliedstaaten Handlungsbedarf haben, um die Ziele, wie wir sie in den grünen Deal-Strategien definiert haben, zu erreichen. Also ich bin durchaus zuversichtlich, dass das möglich sein wird.
Sie sprechen da ja diese Eco-Schemes, diese Ökoregelungen an. Als sich die Agrarminister in Luxemburg getroffen haben, 2 lange Nächte durchverhandelt haben, kam die Bundeslandwirtschaftsministerin Julia Klöckner hinterher vor die Presse und sagte, es ist ein Meilenstein, der da gelungen ist. Gleichzeitig ist es aber so, dass diese Ökomaßnahmen von jedem Land selbst festgelegt werden und jedes Land, natürlich, die Länder sind sehr unterschiedlich und haben unterschiedliche Landwirtschaften, aber jedes Land macht eigene Regeln. Wie wollen Sie da festlegen können, was wirklich am Ende was bringt? Sie haben die Schwierigkeit der Messbarkeit schon angesprochen.
Also something important, and this is really an important element, and this is a topic that we always have with agricultural reforms. How many things do we have to have in common, and up to which point can we concentrate on, let's say, national standards, and in the new reform we should also take care of, like, for example, the Green Deal standards in the different member states. You will see this when we have the recommendations. There are different levels. In some countries we already have the 25% needed, and we have member states where we have a reduce of antibiotics for animals, and therefore the instruments and the financial means that are used by the member states are so different on the basis of the problems they are posing. If you have member states with an intensive interest in animals, then they have to pay more for the climate than other states that have less animals. And our role will be the role of the European Commission when we receive the recommendations, the strategic plans, then we have to have a further look and see if the eco schemes are really the right thing in order to go ahead like we did in Farm to Fork, for example. And indeed, we can value if these eco schemes are ambitious enough in order to solve the problems in the different member states. But there is also one critical point in the whole reform, because we can see that we need to move into a more ecological field, but on the other hand, we weren't able to not financing agricultural land anymore. Right now, we have two pillars. In the first pillar, we have like 45 billion per year, and we are giving this on the basis on how much land every farmer has. And in the second pillar, we are talking about money that the farmers can get if they improve their territories. But we couldn't go away from the fact that we give more for who has more. Well, this is a very important question because it's important for the reputation for the common agricultural policy. This is very important also for the public opinion. And
eines großen Teils der Agrarausgaben mit Flächen
if we
immer wieder ein Kritikpunkt.
Connect money with the farming fields, then this is often criticized, and we have seen this. It's the fact. 80% of the money goes to 20% of the farmers, but you can also define it and say that the big part of the money goes to farmers from 5 to 25 acres, and the problem is not solved right now. But the European Commission proposed that 800,000 euro is the limit, 800,000 and stop, and this already starting from 60,000 there will be reductions. This was the proposal of the Commission because of what you mentioned right now, a fair distribution of the money, and the European Council didn't follow this proposal, and they are therefore still debating in the Parliament and also in the trilogue with the different member states. We can't anticipate what the result will be, but the proposal of the European Council has been that this capping is something you decide for. It is not obligatory, and we wanted to guarantee that we have a better, a fairer distribution of money. But the second point is important too. Now, if you connect the subventions or the help with the land, the question is there. To what else can we connect? We had a past where the payment was connected to production, but we don't want to have that once again. We don't want for 1 kilogram of tobacco or for butter ask for subventions. These are direct payments that are not connected to production. Only you have to keep your land well, and this is a very important function also in order to guarantee the income of conventional farmers. During the crisis, we have seen that differently to other parts of the economy, this direct payments had also a security function. And a last question that I would give in, which would be the alternatives if we don't have direct payments for the land the farmer owns? And now these direct payments are connected to the respect of a number of conditions for climate, biodiversity, and also well-being of animals, and we want also to enhance these conditions. Now, these direct payments are not completely disconnected from from climate and environment. And very often we hear a debate that payments should be connected only for public goods, but farmers are giving us public goods, even keeping up, maintaining also the nature around, and this is something we have to put into the debate. And what are the alternatives for payments? It might not be a perfect system, but it's always the question, which is the alternative then? The difficulty seems also to be that the farmers are in a spiral. They are fighting also against climate change. We have even chickpeas that are now a new seed in Belgium. We had 3 hot summers. And you know that agriculture is also part of the problem, because you said that 10% of the gas comes from agriculture. And how can we help to have a better image? Because we have obviously different problems that people are fighting for this. And then we have all this money going out. Now, how can we get out of this image crisis? Well, this is a very important question. Obviously, we do not have a simple answer, but there is at least one element I was already talking about. It's very important that all of us, and I am talking about the public administration, the farmers, but also the society itself, needs to be interested in measuring what we do. And this is very important, and especially as far as biodiversity is concerned, we see that the data or the starting point is very difficult. I think it's very important that we have good indicators in order to have better measurements. And second point, you are right. As far as reputation of the common agricultural policy is concerned, is obviously how much money we give to certain farmers. And there are many people who ask for these payments, but it's for sure a problem of reputation. And then we have the whole part of animal well-being. What we didn't manage to do always is we are not paying to keep chicken in small cages. We don't want intensive agriculture, because the money we are giving is not related to production. There are some parts where we have, let's say, money, but it's only a limited part, and all the farms that are not corresponding to our idea, we are asking them to they should improve. And now, if they have land, then they get the money we have. And the question, this is the third point, we should do our best in order to improve, like using artificial things or antibiotics for animals. This is something where we have absolutely to improve, and there are a lot of farmers that already are already working at their best, but we have to improve. We have to make steps forward, and the use of new technologies also, as far as farming is concerned, might be one opportunity or occasion to have a more sustainable farming you all know the new technologies in agriculture, right? We got a lot of questions that are related to this topic. And here we do have the connection of sustainability and of a different system. I start with a question by Sabine Hackspiel. She is talking about a study in the newspaper Nature. The importation of fodder, we have a better stand, but we have more CO2 in other countries. And she is asking, are there any measures foreseen that are not considering only what we do in our country, but also in third countries? I think that this question of our interaction with the world is a very central question, because this question is there in many points. Mrs. Hackspiel is right. We have to do our very best when we talk about what we do in third states. And in Europe, as I told you, we are in many cases, as far as the farmers are concerned, self-sufficient, almost all of them. And we have high importations of fodder for animals from all the parts in the world. And you know the discussions that these imports from other parts in the world shouldn't be made than having a worse footprint. And we should have more plants in Europe in order to be independent. And on the other hand, we also see the equation. What does it mean if Europe produces less in different categories of food, and what this means for importations from other countries in the world? This is something we can't leave apart. Now, I would say, as far as all these questions are concerned, is a broad view on these topics, and we need to realize this also in the practical field. We have a question from Christophe Brauer, and he says that the bloating of production leads to more for things that we then bring to Africa. What are we doing to change this situation? I would say that we already have made a lot of things in order to do something about that. Since almost 15 years, we have practically no subventions for food that is exported to other countries. In the public discussion, I'm always here about help for exportations for agricultural products in other parts of the world. And this is something we stopped. In the whole, we are thinking that the help we are giving, because it's not related to production, like in the green box, when we take the standards of the WTO, and therefore the point that we are talking about here is something that we find always in the public debate, but every form of help has been stopped a long time ago. And we always talk about food. Manuel Boss, he says that there is a tendency of climate change, a loss of biodiversity, which is alarming. As I said before, 10% of the gases that are responsible for climate change come from farming, and he is talking about science. And he says that already the agricultural production would be enough in order to get the 1.5 points in temperature. Are there any measures that you can connect to? I'm always coming back to the same question, and the question is, and we should all agree upon that, so we do need enough food, and we want food that is produced in Europe, and this should be obviously something sustainable in order to have a small footprint. But this means also that you can't always only reduce, or that these reductions are made everywhere without having problems with our food production, or that we produce our food elsewhere in the world where we can't be sure that this footprint is getting better. And what is important in this debate, you already talked about the gas producing problems for the environment. All these has to be reduced. We are talking about different gases like methane, and this is in the common agricultural policy with the eco schemes and other measures like new kinds of fodder, and these has to be reduced. That's true. What I would like to say in this context is, as far as farming is concerned, animal farming is concerned, especially if it is extensive, this is also something that contributes to biodiversity. Those of you who go into the nature during the summer, and you see how many wonderful flowers are there, this has something to do with animal farming, because we shouldn't drift into a debate where we have one single element that is only one of the many that we have for our well-being. And thanks to the extensive animal farming, we have biodiversity, or we have carbon sequestration, and also all these things are intertwined, interconnected, and I don't want to have a single approach. We have to say, in the ecological part, we have the climate problem, we have the potential of carbon sequestration. All these things should be covered in a certain way. And I still didn't talk about what this means for economy or for the rural areas. You made clear that everything is interconnected, and it's important not to consider only one part. Therefore, a very last question, where we are also talking about the future. The Commission is defined the Green Deal. We have farm to fork and we have biodiversity strategy. We have the agricultural reforms, and now the ministers agreed and said this is a milestone, although Poland or Lithuania did not agree, even if the commissioner is coming from Lithuania. Then we had the parliament that discussed and agreed with a majority, and then we had an important interview with Mr. Timmermans, who said his impression is that what the council and the parliament decided is not enough in order to be in agreement with the Green Deal and all the other points. And this is something I've never seen, that the Commission is hindering this thing. How do you want to manage this?
Meinungsbildung im Rat.
As far as the council is concerned, this has been quite a difficult thing, because a number of member states shortly before we got to the agreement were still talking about budgets for the eco rules. And our commissioner is coming from Poland. He fought for that, and I guess he gave an important contribution to the fact that so that all member states wanted a budget that is related to the ecological questions. Now, the question you made, I think I already made clear that as far as the positions of the council and the parliaments are concerned, there are reasons why you might be disappointed, but there are also good reasons I talked about, why you might also be optimistic. And in the sum, I'm optimistic, and we will manage to go ahead with the Green Deal strategy. We are talking about pesticides, agriculture, and biodiversity, to use all this for an ecological agriculture, and we will manage to insert them in the different strategy plans we will have. What would be your timeline? They started on Thursday. When would you like to conclude everything? Very good question, because you probably have seen then during these days we have the last trilogue related to the 2 years that will lead to the new agricultural policy, and this was not in our sense. We wanted to be quicker and to enter quicker in the new agricultural policy, so we insisted that this time should be sustainable, more sustainable, and we insisted on the fact that the more money we had that come from the New Generation Fund should be used for climate relevant topics. But in the whole, this means that if we have during this week, if we get to an agreement that the new agricultural policy will be will start in 2023, and from this point of view, we have seen this also in the trilogue, that they will have an agreement at the beginning of 2021, so that afterwards with the different decisions, everything can be brought ahead. And the member states that have also to bring everything into their parliaments, so that the member states have enough time to work on these plans. And please, especially the preparation of these strategy plans is not only done by people from agriculture. We were insisting on the point that this is a topic for the whole society, and therefore all the public administration and all the stakeholders have to be involved. And we think that this will contribute to the fact that this will be very ambitious plans. And these plans should then, at the beginning of the next year, they should be presented to the Commission. I see we might talk once more. It's very clear, but not too easy. Thank you for everything you explained here and how the Commission is working on what they are working. Thank you very much for this, Mr. Burtscher. Thank you for all of you who followed our meeting online, and thank you for your participation. And I would like to give you some outlook on the next events where you can participate. We have the 30th of November, European research. Then we have crisis talks for the climate system, political decision, and you will see even other events that will be taking place in the next time. Thank you very much.